Hello, my lovelies, and welcome to Where the Road Rises with me, your host, Eileen Walsh. There has been much fuss made about the culture of millennials and how they differ from baby boomers, particularly in the workplace. Baby boomers tend to dismiss millennials as unruly, entitled, attention deficit, and disruptive, while millennials, on the other hand, see boomers as cynical, reserved, disrespectful of them, and slow to embrace change. Well, we have a delightful young millennial in our studio today who will help us understand those generational differences, not just to avoid conflict, but how we can enrich each other's lives with our unique contributions. Samantha Malone has been our summer intern at Walsh Law, and she has stunned us with her smarts, critical thinking, and her sophisticated abilities. Samantha is going into her senior year as a communications and journalist student at Northern Illinois University. She is editor-in-chief of their paper, The Northern Star, at NIU, the media publication, and she also writes freelance for local publications such as Suburban Life. And what little spare time she has, she also plays music at local venues, writes and records her own songs, and she also writes stories and hopes one day to be a published author. She has already been offered a scholarship for law school after graduation. What a young lady. Welcome, Samantha.
Thank you.
Samantha, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about how you grew up and how you developed your work ethic and your success mindset?
I grew up in Justice, which is a very small town, and we've lived in the same house my entire life. And it was me, my parents, and my brother. He's 4 years younger than me, but has always been my best friend. So I would say that my parents really helped to instill a good work ethic in me. My dad, when I was little, my dad never missed a day of work unless he was like bedridden by the doctor. So I very quickly picked up on things like that, and they both really encouraged me to always work hard.
And did you have a mentor through high school or when you went to college?
Yeah, I would say my mom has been my biggest life mentor. She's a small business owner, and that was really inspiring. She also just stayed home to raise us when we were young, and then started working part-time. And I don't know, to me, she's really inspirational, and she really motivates me to do my best and has always encouraged me. So she's kind of been a life mentor overall, even though we haven't had the same experiences necessarily.
That's beautiful. And tell us what you do at the school newspaper as editor-in-chief.
Yeah. So originally I was a news reporter, and then the entertainment editor, and then managing editor, and now editor-in-chief. So news organizations kind of work in a hierarchy. So my position is at the top of the pyramid. So right now I do a lot less typical journalism work, what you would think of reporting and things like that, and a lot more managerial things, handling staffing and running meetings and kind of the more background stuff. I do still edit, and everything that gets put out by our publication has to be approved by me, so that's one of the things that I do too.
And what have you learned about leadership and management by being in that top position?
I've had a lot of different bosses in my life, and I've liked them to varying degrees. So I really like to practice, I call it celebrating small successes. That's what our advisor kind of named it. I really like to practice having good relationships with everyone on the staff and letting them all know that they're valued and important and that they're contributing to something, and just congratulating them. So I would say that I learned that people respond well to that. I think they have a general respect for me because they know that I respect them, and so we're able to get things done but also have fun together and create bonds that I think are going to last well beyond my college experience.
And that's a great lesson to learn so young. Samantha, so in what capacity do you find yourself working with people of different generations?
So a lot of the freelance writing that I do, I tend to be working for people in older generations, and they'll be like my editors usually assigning stories. And so that relationship's a little bit different because then they're doing what I'm used to doing back at the school paper. And so I kind of take a different role in that.
And do you find that it's true what we perceive? So we have this perception of millennials, as we said in the intro. Do you have a perception of baby boomers as being very different in the workplace and having different expectations than you've been taught to have?
I would say I think it varies person to person. I think that to group an entire generation of people and say they have one characteristic is a little, it's a little absurd to me. It's like hard to imagine that an entire generation of people is, you know, I think cynical, you said, was one of them. I could definitely say that I feel like people from older generations maybe are more certain of things, where I'm like, I don't know, should I believe this? Should I not believe this? And they're just like, no, don't believe that. But I don't think it's always like a bad thing. I think it's just a difference in the times that we grew up in and like what is going on.
So you're saying that even though things may appear a little different on the surface and technology changes, that maybe human nature and doesn't change that much, and the same true qualities matter in any generation.
Yeah, well, and I think that like I have something to learn from people who are older than me, who have been doing the career that I'm going into, even though it's changing, and they might have something that they can learn from me as well as I'm growing up with it changing.
Yes.
So I think that's like how we pass things down.
Yeah. I heard a baby boomer scold recently that you don't know if that young kid in the dentist chair is homeless or owns Google. And I think it does make a fair point that styles have changed, that we don't necessarily wear suits, and that the bosses are not dressing 10 times better than those, you know, in the mailroom. So I think we would acknowledge that there are certainly been some changes. It's maybe is harder for the traditionalists and the baby boomers to get on board with. But I love your point that even if technology changes and styles change, that ultimately just the same great qualities matter in any generation.
Actually, I was at CNN for a journalism conference recently, and one of the like producers was able to come in and speak with us, and he mentioned how he used to have to come to work in a suit and tie every day, and now he gets to come in jeans and like a casual shirt, and how much it was weird for him at first, but now he loves it and things like that. So yeah.
So there are some perceived changes that maybe are not that too much different. So now, what drives you in your career and in your life, Samantha?
That's a hard one. I think that my parents' support and my grandparents, their support has always helped kind of motivate me. Also, because my brother is younger than me, I've always wanted to set an example for him to know that it doesn't matter who he is or where he's coming from, he can achieve whatever he wants to achieve. So that really, when I'm having really rough days, that really motivates me. And I would say just my own like dreams and ambitions too. I've known since I was pretty young that I wanted to graduate college and writing and things like that. So things that I'm passionate about, I think they kind of self-motivate, and I just keep pushing myself to do better.
And what do you see in your generation, the other college students, the other high school students? Do you see similarly motivated young people?
It's interesting because I spend a lot of my time with other journalists or students who work at the news organization, and I find that we're all very similar, and I think a lot of them are driven by, you know, just wanting to prove something to someone, whether it's themselves or someone from a different generation or a supportive family member or a family member that's maybe not so supportive. A lot of them will talk about how they can't talk about being a journalist at like Thanksgiving dinner because their family doesn't quite agree with that decision, and so
they don't see it as a very stable way forward.
So I think a lot of us are very internally driven and things like that.
That's a good point. Now, journalism is rapidly changing due to technology. I recently sat on a jury. Well, I didn't get picked for the jury because I had been a criminal defense attorney at one time, and prosecutors don't particularly like that. But one of the questions the judge was asking of the jury pool was, how do you get your news? And I was shocked to find that it was completely by generation. So if the millennials all online, all digital, whereas the older people got it from newspaper and from TV. So I hadn't realized that that had changed.
Yeah.
So how do the changes in technology affect journalism, and how will that affect your future career?
So it's interesting right now because I'm taking classes about a profession that by the time I get into the profession, the rules will be totally different.
Yes.
So I'm doing a lot of studies and like reading about a lot of different changes with how people consume news and how quickly they consume news. There's sort of this like gear towards the 24-hour news. Like we always want updates, and we always want more. So that's kind of been stressful for me as in a management position at a college organization, trying to figure out how to take us from being a print publication to transferring that to be print and online, which is a lot harder than you would think. So I'm learning a lot of really good skills from it. I think from a management perspective, like creative ideas and valuing other people's ideas, having plans. I was able to restructure part of the organization and things like that. So those things are all very, I think, beneficial for my career. But it's also hard to say what my career will be like in journalism. Now, with the freelancing I do, I've never even met my editor. We communicate via email. He assigns me a story, I do phone interviews, and I email the story to him. And that's how it's been going for the last 2 months.
So you may not even see the guest that you're interviewing.
Yeah.
So it's all invisible almost.
As opposed to before when you had to do on-the-scene reporting. So if there was a fire, you had to go to the fire no matter where you were. Now, if there's a fire, I can pick up my phone and call someone that might be on the scene.
Right.
So it's in some ways it's more accessible. It also, I think, creates more of a demand. So pros and cons.
And dare we tackle, while we're on the subject, the idea of false news and fake news, and how easy it is to proliferate these very authentic looking news reports. How do you as a journalist see us as a society tackling that?
So I had someone recently tell me that there's no need for journalists anymore because people like the president can communicate directly with the people via social media. And while that's true, I think it's important for journalists to still maintain the integrity of fact-checking things and asking hard questions, because if you're in an administration or you run a business or a school or anything like that, of course you're not going to tweet bad publicity for your own brand, and that's the journalist's job, in my opinion. And like as a society, I think that we as individuals and consumers have a responsibility to check our own information. If you're going to share something, you should like check if it was published this year, because it might have been published 5 years ago and now it's a lie that you're republishing when you share a post on social media. So I think that we should take that role more seriously. Because if you share something that's a lie and I see it, and then I don't know it's a lie, and then that's how I think lies just continue to be published until we have a whole group of people that think something's going on that's not really going on.
Yeah. So there's still a need for objectivity also, Samantha, because we now can tailor our news exactly from the sources that we kind of agree with. So I think there is a problem which is being addressed, that we're only ever really getting news from our own point of view. So are we learning to be tolerant by getting news from a different perspective?
Yeah, we call that an echo chamber. It's when you're basically just reinforcing your own ideas by only consuming news from one particular outlet or one political party. And as a journalist, it's important for me to consume both varieties of news, but I think consumers should too, because that is how we're going to be more tolerable of other people's opinions. And you can pretty much word facts however you want to make them sound your way. So I think it's important to read them both. both ways.
Yes, persuasive writing, and you love writing, and you're thinking about law school, and that's certainly something you're going to be taught. So let's talk about those other interests you have, writing and music. How did you get involved in music, and how do you find time to have music and writing in addition to having jobs, positions, and be a full-time student?
I don't sleep a lot.
I bet.
No, music, I think I've always been really interested in music. That's another one. My dad always listened to music when I was younger. And I always wanted to play the guitar, and it was really hard, and I didn't like that. So it was very difficult. And one day I went to, this is like the cheesiest story ever, I went to a show, and I came home, and I was like, I'm gonna play the guitar. And so, you know, I had already been writing like poetry and stuff at that point, and so that kind of just fused really well with the guitar, and I started writing my own songs and playing other songs as well. But that's probably been one of the most important passions of my life. It's really helped me to express myself and talk about things with, you know, like family members that I would not normally talk to them about, but probably needed to. So that's a lot of fun. I also really like playing out. I think it's fun to bring it to other people, especially I like when, you know, when there's little kids that are watching, and, you know, that you could just tell that they're really, really excited to see a woman playing music, because I feel like that's a male-dominated career, especially locally. So it's kind of fun to be able to do that, and to just, it really brings my family together, and it makes me happy. So I always carve time out for it.
And does public performance help you with your confidence, and therefore help you with dealing with editors and professors and all the business owners you need to deal with in your journalism?
I definitely think that it helps. It's helped me figure out how to carry myself, how to present myself. Of course, it's different than how I would present myself like in journalism or with business professionals. But one thing I like to tell people is it's taught me the value very early on, because I started playing when I was, I think, 16. So it taught me the value very early on of networking and introducing yourself to everyone, and a good handshake.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I think a good handshake's really important. So every time I meet someone, I introduce myself and I shake their hand and
get their business card.
Yes, and I get their business card. So I think that's one thing it's really taught me about. Plus, it's kind of scary to have to play music for 3 hours for a bunch of strangers. So it's definitely helped me to be comfortable around people that I don't know.
I love the networking. Have you ever heard your network is your net worth?
That's cute.
And that's something young people don't typically understand, that it's important to get your professors, those employers, everyone you meet, build up that network, and then when you have something to present or you need some help, you really have a wide audience to go to. Beautiful. So of your music, your writing, your journalism, law, what do you think, do you have a sense yet of what it is you want to do, ultimately?
I don't really know. I know that I want to keep doing the things that I'm doing and keep pursuing doors that open for me. I recently told my brother that when a door, you should open as many doors as you can for yourself, because you can walk through a door and decide that you want to turn around and come back, but you can't open doors that are already closed for yourself. So a lot of what I'm doing is just continuing to follow my passions and opening doors when I see them becoming available.
Oh, I love that. And you may have answered my next question, which was, what advice would you have for young people trying to find their niche, their passion, something that they're going to love and make some money at?
I think I found everything that I'm passionate about by accident. So I would say follow the things that you're interested in and take opportunities. The newspaper, for example, was not what I intended to do. I didn't go to school as a journalism student. I added that on later because I found that I really liked writing for the paper, because I knew that I liked to write. So when I kind of connected those dots, I ended up there, and now I'm writing everywhere all the time. So I would say, yeah, open as many doors as you can. Follow the things that you know you're interested in, because you'll be good at them and you'll enjoy them. You'll put work into them. And just know that, you know, networking is really the most important thing that you can do for your career. So.
Beautiful. And what about a closing thought for our audience, everyone, not just the young people, but the Gen Xers, the Gen Yers, the millennials, the boomers, and the traditionalists?
I think that we need to be more tolerant of each other. That's, I think, really important right now. Just because you see someone that is different from you in age, in career, in anything, doesn't mean that they're different on, you know, their ideals or their values or their work ethics. So I would say enter into as many relationships as you can with an open mind, and just be willing to say yes, because no is what stops you from achieving the things that you want to achieve. So.
I love it. Thank you so much, Samantha. You're a true inspiration. And thank you, Angel Malone. I want to give you a shout out. Angel Malone of Angel Photography right here in Palos Hills introduced me to Channel 4. She gave me you by inviting me to a Meet the Merchant right back in 2013. And this channel has just been a treasure for me ever since. So thank you, Angel. And now you have given us your amazing, talented daughter. And you've taken wonderful pictures of me, the office, the team over the years. So thank you, Angel. Thank you, Samantha. Thank you, viewers, for watching. And we will see you next time on Where the Road Rises.